Hello everybody. I'm making a video here to follow up from the online session we had uh, earlier this week. The idea of this is to show you how you can get the code files that we use during the online session and how to actually be able to run them locally with Python on your own laptop, since the online coding rooms classroom is turned off. So I'm going to show you how to get the code that we use in this online session so that you can study it, you can play around with it, execute it, and maybe add to it. And I'm going to show you how to do that using Visual Studio Code, which is the text editor I recommended to your parents. So that's where we're kicking off now. So this is primarily aimed at those of you who are less familiar with Python or who have had less experience with it in the past, because there's many different ability levels in our group of people taking these sessions. So this is geared towards the people who are unfamiliar with Python or maybe looking at Python for the first time. So I'll have a series of videos to help you kind of get up to speed with a bit of basic Python. But this video is essentially for everybody, whether you're experienced with Python or not, just to show you how to get the files that we're using for the online sessions. Now, I have put the files that I used during the online session earlier this week up into a new GitHub repository. So if you're unfamiliar with GitHub, GitHub is an online tool where you can share code with other people, and it's used in lots of different organizations and companies for keeping the code of software projects. So in GitHub, I've created MOS2 is my own GitHub username, personal account, and I've created a new repository. So each project in GitHub is contained within a repository. And this one here is called Virtual Computer Science 2021. So that's our repository for these online virtual computer science sessions. So this is the link to it up here, which I will share with you in the description down below and with your parents via email. You can see here I have a README file, which is what this is. It's just the description of what this repository is. And then I have in this folder here, number 1, algorithms, all the code files that we looked at during the online session earlier this week. And since the online session, what I have done is I have added some comments into the code files explaining what's going on, again, for those of you who are less familiar or experienced with Python. A comment is a line of code in a program that is not executed. And in Python, lines that are comments start with the pound sign. So these lines are ignored by Python. It only runs lines that do not start with a pound sign. So we usually use comments to explain what code is doing or to stop a particular line of code running for one reason or another. So I've added these in since we had the online session, and you can feel free to look through these things if you want. But I will also cover all of this in another video, in a series of videos. So you don't have to read them all if you don't want to now. So now, while you can browse all the different files here and look at the code, you can't actually run them on GitHub. You need to run them on your computer. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do now. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Visual Studio Code to run all of these Python programs. Now, I sent your parents a link for where to get Visual Studio Code, but if I Google it, Visual Studio Code, there it is. It's the first result. It's by Microsoft. It is free, and you can download it from the download link here. Once you have Visual Studio Code, you have to install it, and then it'll create a desktop icon for you, which is here on my desktop, Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open that, and you're taken to this Getting Started welcome page. And what we're going to do is one of the nice things about Visual Studio Code is that it can integrate into GitHub and find projects there. So I'm going to press the little paper icon up here in the top left-hand corner. And we have two options, open folder or clone repository. And this is the option we're going to go with. It's the easiest because it will allow you to pull in updates as the online sessions proceed over the coming weeks. So we're going to clone the repository, and it's going to clone it from GitHub. So I'm going to click that button, clone repository, and it's asking me in the text box up here to provide repository URL or pick a repository source. So I'm going to give it the URL. So I'm going to go back to GitHub. I will share this link with you as well, but if you see here in the repository for our course, if you look in the code section, this is the link to the repository here. And I can click the little clipboard icon there to copy that link. I'll go back to Visual Studio Code and I will paste that into the box. And there it says clone from URL github.com/mos2, which is me, /virtualcomputerscience2021.git. So I'm going to click that. It's going to prompt me to pick where I want to store the files that it's going to pull down from GitHub. So I'm going to create a new folder in my home directory, new folder, and I'm just going to call it coding course. And I'm going to make sure that's selected, and then I'm going to click the button here, select repository location. So that is where Visual Studio Code is going to put all the files. There we go, clone and git repository. And then it says, would you like to open the cloned repository? So I'm going to say open. And it'll prompt you to say, do you want to trust the authors of the files in this folder? That's me. So if you trust me, tick the box and say, yes, I trust the authors. I certainly trust my own code. My own code is gold all the time, of course. Now, I'm going to close this getting started page. And on the left-hand side here, now you can see we have the Virtual Computer Science 2021 folder, and there's the files we had up in GitHub. There's the README file that you saw, and there's the algorithms folder with all the Python files in it. So we now have successfully pulled down the code files from GitHub. Now, these are all Python files. You know this because they end with .py. So I'm going to open the Hello World, the first example. Now, if this is your first time running Visual Studio Code, there's a little prompt down here saying, do you want to install the recommended extensions for Python? And I recommend that you do. So Python, Visual Studio Code has a Python plugin that allows you to work in a much easier manner with Python files. So we're going to say install. It's taking me to the extension page here. It's the Python extension for Visual Studio Code from Microsoft, and it just says that it's installing. So we have to wait for it to install, which hopefully won't take very long. And this will just make it a lot easier to run Python programs in Visual Studio Code. And it will give you a few programming features as well. So there we go, it's done. It says Python extension is now installed. Some features might not be available until the notebook or interactive session window is restarted. So I'll just say, okay. And it's prompting me here to reload my window, which I can do as well. Okay, now this is just, you can see there, this is taking me to the extensions section of Visual Studio Code. That's this little icon here, and it now shows that I have the Python extension installed. I'm going to go back up to my files, which again is the files icon in the top left-hand corner here, and I'm going to press the little X on this window here to close it. Now, if I open a hello world.py, you can see at the top, one of the new things that the Python extension has added is there's a little play button up here. If you have Python installed on your laptop, then Visual Studio Code can actually run the Python file for you. So if I press play on this, it's automatically opened a terminal window in the bottom of the screen, and I can click and drag that up and down to make it a lot bigger and smaller. And we can see here that it's actually run the Python program for me. Hello world, it's your first Python program. I'm from Quark, which is also printed out. This is a Python program. It is actually an algorithm. All computer programs are algorithms. And it's printed all of these things out. So that's one good way a quick way to run a program in Python. So that's one of the advantages the extension gives you. The way I'm going to show you another way before we finish of how to run the programs in Python, and I would like you to get familiar with this way of doing things because we're going to be using the terminal a lot in some of our later sessions in this online series of classes. If I go to the terminal, if I open Hello World again, I'm going to go to the terminal option and I'm going to say new terminal. Now the terminal has loaded. And you can see it's taken me into the Virtual Computer Science 2021 folder. If I type in dir, which is short for directory, and I hit enter, it shows me the files and folders in the current directory. So I can see here, I can see the algorithms folder and the README file. Now I want to go into the algorithms folder to get at the Python files. So I'm going to type cd, which stands for change directory. So change directory into 1_algorithms. And I'll hit enter. And now I'm in that one algorithms folder. So if I type in dir again for directory, it's showing me all the Python files in the directory, which coincides with what we see on the left-hand side of the screen. And I can run the Python programs from here as well. If I type to do that, if I just need to type in Python and the name of the Python file I want to run. So I'm going to run the hello world example again, which is 01_hello world.py. So Python space and the name of the file I want to run. If I hit enter, that also runs the program. And this is typically the way I will run programs. I'm going to show you one other example. We looked at a Python program number 4 here, the greeting algorithm, which can take input from the keyboard and use it in your program. So I'm going to run that one as well to show you how that works. So again, Python, this time 04_greeting algorithm. I'll hit enter. And it is now prompting me here in the terminal window to type my name. Type your name, which is exactly what we see here. So I'm going to click into the window and I'm going to start typing my name, Michael. And I'm going to hit enter to send that data to the program. And then we get the message, hello, Michael, which is coming from line 11 here. So I can interact and type data into my Python program from the terminal window as well. The same thing would work if I had pressed the play button up here. There it is again, type your name, I don't know, Bob. Hello, Bob. Excellent. I'm not going to be changing my name to Bob anytime soon, just so you remember. Okay, that is how we run our programs in Python using Visual Studio Code, having got the code from GitHub. The final thing to show you is if I upload more code files as the online series of sessions proceeds over the coming weeks, you'll want to download those files as well, the updated files. And you can do that right here in Visual Studio Code from GitHub. If you click on the third icon down on the left-hand side here, which says source control, oh, there we go. It was hidden by default. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to say, I had to click the little 3 dots up here and say source control repositories. So if I do that, you can see here at the top then, I'm going to make that go, I'm going to make this, pull this down. I have source control repositories, and there I can see Virtual Computer Science 2021 on Git. If I press the 3 little dots and I press pull, it will pull down the latest code changes from GitHub for me. But this time, since I pulled down the code to start with, there has been no changes to the code. So there's actually nothing new to pull down. So I could make a change and you would be able to come in here, click the 3 dots and say pull to pull down the files from GitHub. But there's no changes at this point in time. So that is it. Thank you for watching. So in the next video, I'm going to start covering, for those of you again who are not so familiar with Python, I'm going to start covering the basics of Python, so that if you don't want to be reading all the comments I have here, that's absolutely fine. I'll just do it in a kind of a spoken, interactive manner. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.